is called to order. We have Les Darlow here to do a demonstration in Pan Pastels, painting skies. There he is. Welcome, everyone. So we do have prizes today. If you stay till the end of the meeting, we thought it would be really fun to offer some Pan Pastel starter kits for prizes. So we have 3 prizes that'll be given away at the end. Susan Gorey is collecting names and we'll announce those at the end. So we'll start with the demonstration. That'll be about an hour, and Les would like you to put your questions in the chat, and between Susan Gorey and myself, we'll read the questions to Les as he's painting, and he can answer while he's painting, and then we'll do a question and answer at the end of his demonstration. So Les is coming to us from Manchester, England, all the way. Yeah. And I'm going to let him tell you more about himself because we love his lovely accent and it's much more
Excuse me. Well, thank you.
So Les, why don't you go ahead and
thanks, Janice. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, guys. Really appreciate that. So yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about myself briefly. I was actually trained as a technical scientific illustrator, so I'm actually trained to paint things in hyperrealism. I used to use a single hair on a brush and a magnifying glass to paint detail. It was absolutely ridiculous. I'd spend no less than 300 hours on every painting I did, and I think without a gallery to represent me, I couldn't get those figures that I needed to put on those paintings to justify the hundreds of hours that I put in there. So it was a very frustrating time for me as an artist. And it was my sister actually that bought me some pastels, and that really changed everything for me. I went from doing paintings that took 300 hours plus right down to 20 minutes with pastels. And I think it was that transition turning me from an illustrator into an artist. And I've been using pastels ever since. But pastels are absolutely wonderful. But these things, I love them even more. These are incredible. Pan pastels. I just wanted to explain the difference, really, because the difference, all being absolutely microscopic, is huge at the same time. And the difference is it's down to the size of 1 grain. If you took 1 grain of pan pastel and 1 grain of a pastel stick and put it under a microscope, the pan pastel grain is 10 times smaller. What this means, as I say, is it's actually huge. It means I can cover the whole sheet of paper with color and it's going to have no effect on the tooth of the paper. That's a real advantage, believe me. It's also makes it a semi-transparent medium, which again is very unusual. It's more like a crossover between watercolor and pastel, but being a dry medium. So it's quite very unique. All down to the size of the grain. I can put tons of color on the paper, and because it doesn't really sit on the surface like pastels does, it sits inside the fibers more, I can draw over it with, again, literally anything that I want, including technical pens such as pigment liners and things like that. And I've recently found out I can use watercolor over the top. It's like, what? It's opened up all these new doors for me as an artist. You mix like paint, but dry. So I can take my primaries, my blues, yellows, reds, and from there make my secondaries and so forth. So with a black and a white and my primaries, I can make quite a lot of colors, believe me. I can erase it with a plastic eraser, cheap plastic eraser. What else? And there's hardly any dust if you use them properly. So the pluses for Pan Pastel are incredible. I don't think I would ever purchase them because of what they actually look like. They look very plasticky, very cheap, very amateurish, but I think they're one of the most incredible mediums I've ever used. If somebody said, we either take your pastels off you or the Pan Pastels, I would give my pastels away. That's how much I think of Pan Pastel. I think they're absolutely incredible. Anyway, I'm going to demonstrate a couple of ways of using them. They're a lot more painterly than pastels, I think. So I'm going to do two paintings for you on two very different papers. One, I'm going to use Pastel Matte, which is a very, very sort of soft, almost like a cross between wet and dry sandpaper and velvet. That's how I would describe it, really. And then the second one, I'm going to do on Canson Me Tent, which is a cotton paper, and I'm going to use watercolor over the top, which you'll see how I can use watercolor over the top. Believe me, it's incredible to be able to do that. Excuse me. So let me swap over to my camera on my easel, and I'll start doing a demonstration. Any questions, please just ask as I'm working, and I'll show you how these fantastic things work. So let's pop those down there. As you can see here, I've got what I call a tester sheet, because what I really need to do is test my colours before I apply them to the paper. I'll show you, as you'll see as I'm mixing. And the only way to apply Pan Pastel really is with sponges. You can't use anything else. You can't use your fingers. You can't use a brush. Some people use a brush, but to me, all it does is make dust. And the last thing you really need is dust with pastels, isn't it? Because they're obviously not very good for breathing in. So use these fantastic little sponges. All you do is you take a gentle wipe on the surface and test it on here, and then start painting with it. And I also sort of use this as a little bit of a palette. So I'll be able to pick up colour from here as I mix. I'll still be able to go over to there. And I have these little tools. They come in various different sizes and shapes. Great for drawing with, sketching, life drawing. A fantastic little tool again. I'll just explain a little bit about how I work as well. Excuse me. I'll sometimes take a number of pictures when I'm painting. I very rarely copy something. So I'll use photographs for inspiration to paint. I like to keep a lot of my compositions very simple. That way I can concentrate more on mark making. And I think with Pan Pastel, these sponges have helped me develop a style of painting that I'm really happy with, believe it or not. So let me show you how they work. So I've got my yellows. I've got two yellows there. One's a green bias, one's more sort of red-orange bias. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix yellow and blue together, but I'm not going to get green. Okay. Anyway, let me start by doing a little bit of painting. So I'm going to take that ultramarine tint here. I'm going to start just making some marks on the paper, and you'll see I'll start to get lovely little beautiful marks. I sort of dab a little bit as I'm painting. I get these fantastic wispy little marks. With it being transparent, this medium, I need to build up my layers slowly. And I'm going to let this colour come throughout this painting. But I'm going to use yellow and blue, but I definitely won't get green. I hope not, anyway. After I've said that. But one of the reasons I won't get green is I'm using a ultramarine tint here. Ultramarine tint is a blue violet on the colour wheel, so it's got a little bit more red in it than any other blue. So blue violet. So I'm making sure my blue has a little bit more red in it, blue violet, and my yellow is going to be red orange bias on the colour wheel. So mixing those two together, I shouldn't get green. I'll build up these layers slowly. I'm going to start to mix a little bit of magenta with this. Magenta again is a blue violet. It's got a lot of warmth in it, hasn't it? So that will work really well. So let's add a little bit of ultramarine and a little bit of magenta. So I can mix there, and then I can start you'll start to see the marks I make now. And the blends of colour, it's absolutely fantastic for blending. It's beautiful. Sort of stabbing at it a little bit, and you get these beautiful marks. I never thought in a million years that I would become a sponge artist, but these sponges are just like using a brush to me. It's absolutely wonderful. You see those lovely marks? And you can soften any edges. If I wanted a total, just a complete gradient, if I keep my sponge flat, I can just blend that colour in until you get a complete soft blend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, if I needed to change something, for instance, and erase that, look, I can just erase it. Anyway, let's go back to the painting here. Let's build up these shapes, these colours. A little bit dark up that top end there. Beautiful marks. I've been painting all week in the studio, and most of it has actually gone in the bin. I was telling somebody the other day, all my best work is either live demonstrations or at workshops and things like that. I very rarely can produce things that I really like in the studio. And I sometimes wonder it's because painting live is more spontaneous. I don't have the time to spend too long on something, and it becomes more, I don't know, just special. I don't know what it is, but it's true. All my best work's definitely done live. Now, I can use some of the colour of the paper for this, so it means I don't have to sort of put a lot of colour on, but just let me put these light, beautiful, warm yellows on here. and they won't go green, so I'm using a red-orange bias. A little bit lighter towards the face, because what I'm actually going to do is going to bring in some trees and mountains at the bottom here. I'm going to go a tone darker with some a little bit of orange mixed with magenta there. For some contrast. A bit of blue in that as well. A bit just coming underneath there. Right. I'm going to bring some of this yellow just down here a little bit in a vertical fashion, just to get a little bit of depth. Then we'll put some trees in. This has very little effect, and I think what I like so much about Pan Pastel really is everything I do, I could actually do a completely different painting over the top of this. If I didn't like what I've done with pastels, I could do a completely different painting, because this has not affected the tooth of the paper at all. See how it doesn't blend? You can't push it around with your fingers. It's absolutely superb. So I can start with my pastels after this, and it will just totally come to life. Anyway, let's do these little trees.
Les, we have a question.
Yes,
Linda Evans asks, why are you choosing a portrait format when your references are all landscape format?
That is a good question. I tend to use. I actually like. There's few formats I like. I like the portrait very much for doing skies. When I'm doing a sort of more of a big sky, I'll use the rule of thirds. So I'll drop my horizon to a lower third. I like to use my marks to sort of create shapes in the sky. I find very often when I'm approaching anything, I always look for ways of driving your eye to a focal point. For instance, these are great colors in this, but the shape doesn't work. You've almost got a triangle in the sky, and I very often find that people will copy things like that. And it's great for reference, but if you copy this, you'll just see a big, as far as your composition is concerned, a big triangle shape in your sky. So I've used these three perhaps to make some marks. I'm trying to sort of drive your eye to a certain point in this. I'm going to add a little bit more light down here to go for the lower right third, and you'll see how I do that with value and color temperatures and sort of drive your eye to that focal point, really. Yeah, I like the portrait format because it's quite powerful for me, and I like a square format. I'll do a square format next. I really like that. I do use landscape formats, but I've just got an idea for this. I just want to put some trees in here and just keep it very simple so I can concentrate on the mark making. I tend to very often keep my compositions very simple because I can concentrate on those lovely marks that I'm making on the paper rather than detail. My sort of detailed days are numbered, let's say. Definitely numbered. So let's start with a little bit of, we'll just create some shapes here for these trees. Again, I use this square edge of the, and I don't mind it. Some people say, well, you know, trees aren't, clouds aren't, excuse me, square, don't have square edges, but again, it's a style of painting, isn't it? And actually, since I've started using these sponges, I think it's really sort of helped me develop as an artist. And I don't mind if people say, well, your clouds are square. I like them. You know, the mind, I can have them whatever shape I like. Same with the trees. Let's use this little tool here as well to show you use this as well. Let's go a little bit darker. I am going to use a few pastels as well. But let's just bring in some more colours into this lower bench here. Get some more colour on, because then these, when I use a different pan pastel, it will blend in with this beautiful orange there. Let's bring that ultramarine tint. So I'm using yellow and blue there, not getting green because of my colours that I'm using.
Karen has a question.
Please.
How come you're not getting mud despite the fact that you're using the same sponge?
Yeah, very interesting that. Yeah, I use the same sponge. Sometimes I flip it over, but generally speaking, I can do a whole painting with just using one side of the sponge. If you notice, when you sort of, if I just wear it out a little bit on here, I just take that colour there. I'll just use that there. I could then go back in with any colour on here and start again, because it sort of wears it out, so it's almost fresh again. So as long as there's not lots of colour on there, I've got a little bit of blue on there at home. As long as there's not lots of colour on there, I can just go in and pick up another colour. So these are very easily cleaned. And you can also use a paper towel just to give them a quick wipe. And then, so I could use the phthalo blue extra dark there, do a little bit of work with it, paper towel, or wear it out on the paper here, then take a yellow and straight back in, and it'll be absolutely fine. So, and if you notice, I think pan pastels are like anything else. The more you mess with them, the more likely you are to get mud. So I'm very conscious of that when I'm working. So if you notice, I do a lot of this, and I don't keep going over and over the same marks. I can take a little bit of, say, phthalo blue. We'll just bring a little bit of phthalo blue in there. But you won't see me sort of keep rubbing it in until it goes muddy. So I just that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's do a few little marks here, and then I'll do a little bit of I want to do a little bit of pastel over the top, but I know you want to see how I use pans here, so let's just, you'll see, I'll just take a few angular marks here. And anything, like I say, I've done so far, I can definitely go in with a pastel and change everything that I've done. So I'm never worried about sort of getting to a certain point and going, oops. I think it takes that worry out of It's just, I'm just going to darken this slightly for your camera so you can perhaps. Yeah. So let's just darken these trees just that little bit more on the horizon there. Give me that sense of focus point. Let's put a few little let's take a light yellow pastel here and a light blue. So I've just swapped over to a few little pastels here. Choose that one. So imagine being this far in and still being able to change everything you've done, because everything I've done, so the whole tooth is available for me now in this painting. Again, it's in a perfect place to the yellow. Let's go in and perhaps change some little yellow bits here and there. I wanted to go in the focal point here, just that little bit more. Oops. Let's take a more of a sort of a orangey. Because there's so little pastel, you seem to have an awful lot of control over what you're doing. So there's a little bit of blue towards the bottom, so there's a little bit of a contrast as well. I think you can see there how much control you've got over fans. This fact, we'll just go a little bit darker towards this left-hand side. Mix a little bit of violet shade with that to get a little bit more of a rich warm colour.
Sharon asks, are you blending some with your fingers?
No, you can't blend with Pan Pastel. You can't blend. You can't blend. The pastel, I have to put quite a lot on with pastel mat to make it blend at all. If you look, this is pastel here, this yellow, but it's very difficult because there's hardly any pastel on the paper. This whole process makes it so much easier, really, to, well, have control over what you're painting, really. without losing any. Let's just have a little bit of light right there. A bit of ultramarine. So there's so little amount of pastel on it. The control, as I say, you know, years ago, as I was painting, perhaps there'd be a lot. You can very easily end up sort of in a muddy situation, can't you? By putting too much pastel on too quick. Whereas I find this process really sort of liberating. Because I don't have to add that much pastel to make a great painting, and I've got a lot more control over what I'm doing. Yeah, beautiful now. How's that for a simple little painting?
You can all unmute if you want to and make comments. I'm curious, your palette is on the side like that. Is that how you always work? That's pretty nifty.
I always have this sheet here that I can mix my colours with. Yeah,
And
that's
the Pan Pastels on the right?
yeah. I've done that really for you guys. I normally hold them, hold a tray. I normally work vertically, so I'm sort of working flat here right now, but I normally work vertical. But let's just put a few more marks in here.
Okay, so you're working flat right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, about 10-15% angle that way, about 10-15%. But yeah, I would normally work, yeah, definitely flat.
oh, thank you.
You can see the beautiful marks that you can get. Really lovely, aren't they? But what I want to do, I want to do something very different for you on a different paper. Totally different paper, and it's absolutely incredible with a little bit of watercolor. Yeah.
Well, if you'd like to make comments before he removes it there and starts a new one, feel
It's
free.
lovely.
To
It's just so
Beautiful piece.
delicate.
Those marks.
Yeah,
It's so beautiful.
yeah,
I think
lovely piece.
what I like about the use of the sponges, I say, it's really lovely to get these lovely marks that you get. Absolutely love it.
It seems like it came up so effortlessly the way you did it. So beautiful.
I've got this is one I did recently. A little bit of a snowscape again. Look at the very simple marks that you can get with the pans. And you can't blend it, so you can't smudge it at all.
Mm.
Wow.
Which is great, you know. As I say, with pastels, you always get this sort of muddy. You put too much on and you get mud. I brought a couple of things just to show you. This one I did the other day, and I'm gonna do another one for you on a completely different paper now. But this one was on Canson Touch, and there's hardly any. It's just so got a lot more control over. I think the pastels, because you don't fill the tooth very quickly. You know, look at all the texture you get managed to retain. Can you see all the texture you retain in the paper?
Beautiful. The winter scene that you just showed us, did that have some ink or watercolor on it?
Watercolor, yeah. Which
Ah.
I'm going to show you now on a different paper. Just before I've got a couple I want to show you here, and then I'll show you. I'll do a demonstration of that. That's on the same paper. That's pastel mat. Again, you can see the beautiful marks that you get. All it's 90% pastel, pan pastel that. 90%. Now this is watercolor and pastel. Watercolor and pan pastel. Can you see the effects you get?
Yes.
More texture in the paper.
Mhm.
So varied.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
honestly, that there is, I say, a lot of pan pastel, watercolor, then pastel. I could still do a completely different paper painting over the top of it because the texture of the paper's still there. It's not over full with pastel.
Mhm.
It gives you lots and lots of opportunities. Anyway, I'm going to put another piece of paper on here, and I'm going to do pan pastel, and then watercolor over the top, then pastel. One of the great advantages of this technique is I do my pan pastel stage, and I can change any of that because it doesn't have any effect on the tooth of the paper. Once I've done that, I do watercolor. That again has no effect on the tooth of the paper. So I can get 3/4 of the way through a painting having no effect on the tooth. And we all know with pastels, as soon as that tooth is full, there's very little you can do because it just becomes a mud bath, really. Excuse me. So, yeah, this is a fantastic way of painting. It really is. What I have to do here is just going to straighten this out because that's really bugging me. So I just have to make sure that it's stuck down very well. I'm going to use some watercolor over the top. Now, this paper is Cancer Me 10. Now, I know from speaking to a lot of people in the States, in the US, is that it's very often thought of as a practice paper because it's relatively cheap. But believe me, it's not. It's not a practice paper. It's an incredible pastel paper. It really is. I think sometimes it's misunderstood a little bit. Let me just get a piece of tester piece. And I'm using the orange peel side. There's two sides to E10. There's the smooth side and there's the orange peel textured side. I always use the orange peel textured side because I need that texture. A little bit. Okay, so pans again. Let's use this sponge here. Give it a little bit of a white. I'll use my trousers there. Get rid of the colour off there, and then we'll use. I'm going to start with a yellow base. So again, this is pure white. I'm going to use the yellow, but I'm going to make sure it goes a little bit pinkish, a little bit on the red-orange bias side. So I'm going to give it what I call it a wash. I call it a wash. I'm going to keep the sponge flat, and we won't really get any marks. We shouldn't do anyway. So I'm just giving it a little bit of a wash, dry wash. If I was doing a watercolor, for instance, I'd probably wet the paper, drop a little bit of yellow ochre in there, mixed with a little bit of light red, while it was still wet, maybe dropping a little bit of paint spray. So I almost think of it the same way, although I'm working dry. No questions, guys?
I think we're all just mesmerized watching.
Oh, that's good then. I sometimes wonder that, because I'm not looking at the screen, whether everyone's still there.
We're
So,
still here.
Yeah, we're still
still
here
there.
watching.
Okay. So, because it's transparent, I have to think. I'm working on a white paper now. I have to work light to dark. I can't start with the darker colours. I have to work light through dark. Light watercolor. We'll leave a little bit of the white paper. Why not?
Stephanie says she'll be in Manchester soon on holiday. Do you have a studio to visit?
Since the pandemic, I've moved home, so I'm back at my studio's at home now. But I'll have workshops. If she's coming over, there's workshops always in Manchester every month. There's Manchester, all around the northwest of England. There'll be workshops. I'll do probably at least 4 a month, I'd say. So yeah, there'll always be a workshop on.
And those listed on your website?
Yes, yeah. Let's take a little bit of magenta extra dark there. A little bit of magenta mix there. So I'm going to work my way up to the darker colours. So I'm going to start shaping some clouds. That's all. So use that sponge and start to shape some wispy cumulus clouds. Again, I keep it very light. You can actually control how much Pan Pastel goes on by the pressure. So I can actually press on really light and very little goes on, press a little bit harder. So you've actually got, believe it or not, quite a lot of control over the pans as how much goes on. They take a little bit of getting used to, I admit that, and I do make it look a little bit easier than it perhaps it is, but I think that's just because I've been using them for a long time now. I still think there's not many people use them for landscapes and seascapes and things like that. They tend to be mainly animal portraiture, and I'm surprised because I think people are missing an absolute trick, because they're very, very unique. They really are very painfully. No black, look, just clean my hands. I can't do anything. I can't push around. It's not, I think what it does is, with pastels, it sits on the tooth, doesn't it? When you apply it, you drag it across the surface, it sits on the tooth. With Pan Pastel, it sits inside the fibres. So it's not sitting on the surface, it's sitting behind you at the bottom rather than at the top. So it allows you to put loads of colour on without affecting the tooth of the paper. And I think that's a heck of a bonus, I really do. Let's bring some, so now I've got yellow, magenta. Let's bring some blues into the game. Bring some ultramarine tint. Again, over the top. Bring some ultramarine tint in here. What I'll do is I'll take pictures of these afterwards and send you these guys, so you can analyze them a little bit closer. And you'll probably see a lot more of the transparency because you've probably not picked that up as much.
That would be great. Marilyn
Yeah.
Hurst wants to know, do you use other papers?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm an ambassador for the Canson brand, so I do use a lot of Canson papers, mainly because they do the job for me. But I'm not. I do use, yeah, various other papers without doubt. Yeah, let's just up the contrast a little bit, see if we can. I want to try and get the effects that you're seeing true to what I'm seeing here. Use a little bit more ultramarine with that magenta there. Let's see if we can up the level of value.
Willa would like to know if, she'd like to know what is the largest size painting you've done with Pan Pastels?
Oh, the full size of Canson Me tent, really, which is probably 800 by 600 millimeters. So just just short of a meter, really. 800 millimeters, 1,000 millimeters would be a meter, wouldn't it? So yeah, very big. And again, you'll fill the paper very quick with color. Really get tons of color on. Yeah, I've done some big paintings, and they're actually really good for being outside and painting with. Yeah, so
Connie O'Reilly is asking if you could please give us the numbers of the Pan Pastels you're using today. Maybe that's something you could follow up with us later.
yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, I do have a favorite palette, without doubt. Yeah, I can do that, I'm sure. You will also get much stronger colors if I fix this as I'm painting. I'll get really strong values. They're quite weak at the moment, but it's only because it's only a few layers. But if I fix this, it'll seal it, and I'll be able to add lots more color.
What fixative do you use?
Sorry?
What fixative do you use?
Dale Rowney, Clairefontaine, various really. I don't really have a favorite. Let's just, I want to get some more color in here, so I'm just using a little bit of red, orange, just at this bottom bit here. I want to get some watercolor on it for you guys to see, so you see what happens with this. Bring a little bit more sort of red orange underneath here. So I'm going to bring a mountain range in, I think.
So Les, you've got about 9 minutes.
Oh, no problem. Let's drag this color down a little bit. Bring some blues into this. We'll put a mountain range in there. So quickly, let's put a line of tape across there. Let's do that mountain range.
Donna Stevens wants to know if your fixatives are workable.
Not really. With pans being so fine, it seals it. But what I don't want to do is seal it at the moment because I want to add watercolor over the top. And what the watercolor does is, what the pans does is it repels the watercolor. But that's actually what I want it to do. You'll see when I start to use it in a moment. Let's just do a slightly darker. Just over the top. Let's just bring in, just take that down for a bit. Just let's drop this down just a little bit, create a little bit of a, and then I'm just going to use some watercolor. Right, let's bring a little bit of watercolor into this now. It's really very effective. And you'll see what happens to it. It sort of repels it a little bit. The dust will repel it just that little bit. Okay, I've just got a number 10 round there, something like that. Right, let's take a little bit of phthalo blue, perhaps, a little bit of magenta. So on the paper itself, you'll see there the watercolor goes on fine. What happens when I try to do it over the pans? It repels it a little bit and gives you this broken effect, like the dry brush effect, which is exactly what I really wanted to do there. So look, so let's bring a little bit of this into here. The effects are really fabulous. Watch what happens here now. It's just, I'll drop a little bit more in there in a second. Watch this foreground here. Take a little bit of colour. See how it breaks up that little bit? You'll see it more when it dries. It's got a little bit of a shine on it at the moment.
What color watercolor are you using?
Again, just a little bit of Dale around here.
But what color?
Oh,
Like
phthalo blue and magenta.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to dry it very quickly with a hairdryer in a second. But you'll see what this will do is, again, it's have no effect on the tooth. No effect whatsoever. But it breaks the surface really nicely. And what it will do is none of it affects the tooth. So when I start using my pastels, I've still got 100% of the paper available. Let me just dry it quickly and then it'll take that sort of sheen off the surface for you guys. Just talk amongst yourselves just for a second.
He turned his sound off. That's nice. Fascinating.
It's got to be 100% dry before you use your pastels. If not, it will just turn into a paste.
I thought he used a resist, but he doesn't. It gives a resist effect in the whites.
Right, so we've used Pan Pastels. Look. I can't blend anything. It's fixed. It doesn't need fixing. But yet, I can go over this now with, let's use a little bit of yellow here. All the two still completely available for me. Let's just bring a little bit of atmosphere into there. Those mountains. Let's change the shape of this a little bit here. Bring a little bit of blue into this. This will blend beautifully into it. Bring a little bit of blue into the sky, perhaps. You just end up with nicer, cleaner, less mud. As you can see, I can change anything that I've done. And I think it's just absolutely works great. I could still go back into that with watercolor, you know, and go over the top. You've got so much more, to me, so much more control over the painting. Let's just take that a little bit closer for you.
Wow.
You see the effects that you get with the dry brush?
Oh, it's wonderful. I love the dry brush effect.
Yeah, it's like, to me, I can get 3/4 of the way through a painting and I've still got all the tooth to work with.
Wow.
So I don't get mud, I get cleaner lines, whiter whites, purer colors, and it just works. It's made me, to me, it's made me a better artist, Pan Pastel, because I used to do my paintings and yeah, I got good results, but I think they were sometimes a little bit muddy. Whereas this, I don't get mud anymore. I get clean lines. I get seascapes that are clean again. This one's on watercolor paper. Again, look at the textures that you can get. Sorry. See the textures that you can get. And again, I can do a completely different painting over the top of that if I wanted to. This was one that I did at a demo the other day. Again, very simple. But again, that I can go over with pastel and change anything that I've done.
Wow.
Beautiful.
You're getting
Really,
lots of great
really
comments.
So fun
Really
to watch.
effective.
Wow.
Yeah. And the color harmonies are so gorgeous.
That's beautiful.
Look at the mark making though. The wispy mark making in the cloud.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, I get square edges, but again, it's a style, isn't it? It's a style of painting that's really effective.
Mhm. Peggy says, bravo. Jenny says, this is outstanding. Love the dry brush feel. Donna says, I'm excited to try this method. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't. I think a few things that you could take from this really is that, as I say, as far as painting is concerned, sometimes we get into a painting and then wonder, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, or that's not quite right, and sometimes they end up in the bin. But this way of working, you Pan Pastel, you can change completely anything that you've done with pastel, or you can erase it with an eraser. You go over with a watercolor, although you can't erase the watercolor, you can cover it with pastel. So I think I don't think I'd just use pure pastel anymore. I think this combo of the work, the Pan Pastel, then watercolor, then pastel, what a way to paint. It's really, really effective and gives me so many solutions to things that perhaps, the Pan Pastel is very, very impressionistic. It's very loose. You're using a big sponge. Then you've got the watercolor with a big brush and using the side of the brush a lot of the times. Again, I get these. Sometimes I had a lot of water and just let it all bleed and things like that. Then I go in and I can add all the texture with pastels. I'm a landscape and seascape artist, so I need texture. So that's, those things are extremely important to me, to not just do, put pastel and then just do all that blending thing and it just all turns smooth and, that's for pet portraits to me. I need that texture. I need that of the land, and this method of working, getting that lovely dry brush, and I get the best of both worlds because I can still get the blends that people are obviously associate with Pan Pastel. I tell you, as the guy that you need to have a look at if you don't know anything about him at the moment. The difference between him and myself is he's an exceptional watercolorist. He's called Ray Balkwell, and he does watercolor first on a cold press paper, then pastels. And again, think about it. You can cover that sheet of paper, cold press paper, with watercolor, and then change it with pastel, should you need to do. So again, you've got the best of both worlds. And it's like years ago, perhaps I'd use a blue paper or I'd use a burgundy paper, and it's just one color. Whereas you get halfway through a painting with watercolor or inks or anything like that doesn't affect the tooth of the paper. To me, that's much better because you don't have to put as much pastel on. You've got a lot more control over the finish. It's when we put too much pastel on that it goes a lot of the time is pear-shaped because there's too much pastel on. So this is a way of working where you've got more control. You create more light, more energy, more movement, and yeah, it's just changeable. And I think that's what I love about it, really.
Can you give us Ray's last name again, please?
It's Balkwell, BALKWILL.
Thank you.
He's a fabulous artist, an absolute fabulous artist. And in fact, I can just show you. You'll see straight away when I show you some of his work.
We have some other comments here. Linda Body says, something I never imagined was possible to do with this paper. It's an amazing effect. Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
So, watercolor first, then pastel, and he creates more light, more energy, more movement, cleaner lines, whiter whites. It's just he's a fabulous artist. You get the best. I'm not. I can do watercolor. I do achieve some good results sometimes. But this he is a good watercolorist. But the pastel watercolor combo on a cold press paper is absolutely magnificent. I've started to do a lot more of that because, again, I teach a lot, so the ability to change a student's work, should we need to at any point, for composition purposes and things like that. Surely that's really what it's about, isn't it?
Well, lots of positive comments. People can't wait to try it again. Linda
Yeah,
Evans,
yeah. I mean, Pan Pastel. Trust me, Pan Pastel. Once you get used to Pan Pastel, I would never go back to just using pastels. It's the two. They're just too amazing. They really are very special. I absolutely love them. Absolutely.
well, thank you so much.
I think you'd rather look at that than me.
You have so many wonderful examples. People should go to Les's website because he has even more. And I think you have YouTube videos and
Yeah,
you've
I've just
also
brought out
offered.
I've actually just brought out a tutorial. It's a 25-page step-by-step using Pan Pastel, Watercolor, and Pastel on a cold press paper. And it's a very simple composition. It shows you how I use it.
And people are asking for the colors you like. Is that on your website as well?
Well, I have Pan Pastel have given me my own sets now, so I have a 20 set and a 10 set. But again, either use the starter set, which is the primaries, black and white. I was saying before to Janice, I really need two blues, because they're not pure blue. So I've got an ultramarine, which is a blue violet, and the phthalo blue green. Then I can get the different greens when I'm mixing yellows and things with that. So I always make sure I've got two different blues that go that different way on the color wheel to get when I'm mixing with, like I say, you can get two yellows. You can get the warm yellow, or you can get the green bias yellow. Again, the green bias yellow mixing with a green bias blue, you're going to get those vivid, strong greens that you may want. Whereas mixing the yellow with a little bit more red in it, and the greens, the blues with a little bit more, you get more of the sap greens and things like that. So it's learning to mix with them again, because sometimes I'll add that phthalo blue to that yellow, then mix a little bit of orange in there, magenta, and you get a really nice color. So it's learning to mix with those colors and see what comes out of them, really.
Okay.
So it's getting used to them.
Thank you.
Les, we like the way you say sponges. It sounds like Ringo Starr.
Sponges, doesn't it? Ringo Starr.
Okay, well, gosh, Les, thank you so much. We really enjoyed it, and
All right, enjoyed myself today.
we'll
Thank
make
you.
sure everybody gets to
Thank
see
you.
the final result. And
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank
No
you.
worries.
thank you. Thank you so
So what I'll
much.
do,
Great.
I'll take some. I'll take some pictures. It may not be tonight, if that's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right.
I'll take some good pictures, and I'll send you a list of colours that I've mainly used in tonight's demo,
Perfect.
along with a few other things. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, if you do get some, there's Pan Pastels website, but there's also, they have another website called paintdrawblend.com, and there's lots of resources on there how to use them as well. It's experimenting a little bit. I actually did a painting holiday in the Lake District in England in September, and I had a lady come across, and can I just show you that before you go?
Okay.
Let me just find this picture, because the reason I want to show you, I think she was quite an experienced artist. She was an experienced artist. But let me just find this picture for you, and I'll share my screen 1 second. She didn't think it was very good, but I immediately saw that it was pretty special. And she mainly used acrylics. But let me find this picture, because I think you'd be quite shocked. I thought at first, because I was looking at other people's work while they were working, that she was going to create a very muddy picture. And I was, right, let's get this open for you. I thought she was going to create a very muddy picture, but she didn't. So let me share my screen with you 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see that?
No. Oh,
There
there
No?
it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's hers?
Yeah. I thought
Oh,
it was
wow,
Turner. I immediately thought Turner.
beautiful.
Definitely.
Now
Yeah.
that is Pan's with just watercolor over the top.
Oh,
No
It
pastel.
went away.
Or is it?
We're not seeing it anymore.
away.
We're seeing a different window.
Can you see that?
No,
No.
oh, this is your,
There.
there it is.
There.
Can you pin that screen?
I need you to share your screen for me to do that.
Unshare it one sec. Let me do that for you then. How do you do that? Wait a minute.
You know, I tell you what, Les, we're running into our business meeting now, so could you
I'll
send
send
that
I'll
along?
send it you. I'll
Yeah,
send it
send
to
that
you then.
along and we'll share it with our members. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll send it over to you because it's really worth looking at that because she actually achieved something that I'm in awe of, and to be quite honest with you.
I see what you mean about a Turner influence. You really see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'll send it over with the pictures when I send it across.
Okay. So if you would unshare your screen, then we're gonna end this portion of our meeting and move on to our business meeting. And you're welcome to stay, or you can go on and enjoy the rest of your evening, because I know it's evening there now, right? It's after 7 o'clock. Your wife's
Yeah,
probably.
I am being summoned by my.
Yeah.
I've got all the grandchildren around. They're waiting to. They've been pestering me all day. How long are you going to be, Granddad?
Yeah. Okay.
So
You enjoy your evening, and thank you so much. We had
yeah,
so much
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
inviting me, guys. And I will
Thank
send you some things through to share.
We
Loved
appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much,
Thank you.
Les.
you,
It was
So much.
thank
what-
you, thank
a
you.
wonderful demonstration. We got a bed here.
Loved it.
You come to the United States and Jacksonville, we got a place for you.
Yes,
Oh,
let's do
All
it.
right.
Wow.
I'll book me tickets.
Okay.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
bet.